refugee problem for Congo is not, should not be Rwanda's problem, and neither should it be a dumping ground. Kenya has had its own experience with regard to the refugee situation, and a number of times there are instances where that has also, contributed to insecurity in Kenya, especially when it comes to radicalization. But at the same time, many a time also the world has forgotten that Kenya is shouldering the burden of refugees. And if we were to use Dadaab or even Kakuma, these camps have been there for more than 3 decades, And so the more you don't make noise about it, the more people become comfortable and they don't want to take responsibility. Refugees is an international problem. It has to be dealt with by the international community. And those countries hosting refugees need to be assisted in that endeavor. Now, the situation here is complicated, and one of the things that Kagame has raised, which I've consistently been mentioning, with regard to the problem in Eastern Congo in particular, is actually the issue of ethnic cleansing, that it is ignored. There has been a systematic ethnic cleansing, especially against the minority Tutsi community who live in Eastern Congo, who are Congolese citizens. Now, that may not be very popular sometimes in certain diplomatic circles, but if we are going to fix the problem of Eastern Congo, you have to fix that type of problem. Remember, after the genocide in Rwanda, and with 2 million refugees from Rwanda moving into Congo, the killing of or the death of Habyarimana denied Mobutu Sese Seko his natural ally. They had been friends for a very long time. And the so-called, Democratic Forum for Liberation of Rwanda, which now Rwanda accuses of using Congo as a staging ground, and that is partly explains his involvement in Congo from the 1990s, is actually made up of the former Interahamwe genocidaires who killed people in Rwanda. And the former military people, about 150,000 of them. Of course, many of them are now dead, or they get old or tired, but there's still a lot more who are inspired by that ideology. And that is something that has created a sense, for instance, even among the Rwandans, and especially among the Tutsi population, that they are on their own. And I think I've used this example on this platform before. Rwanda and the Tutsi community, I think, especially in Central Africa, has a siege mentality of survival. And I always compare it with the state of Israel, that when they came for us, no one was there to protect us, And somehow, all our neighbors don't seem to be very friendly to us and accusing us of all sorts of things. But then they're still committing genocide or rather ethnic cleansing against us. And so we're going to have to rely on ourselves. And to the extent that the ethnic dynamic is not discussed, especially with regard to really blatant ethnic cleansing that is taking place in there, it's going to be a problem. Fine. We can, if you've watched M23, they seem to be very well armed. Their fatigues are very professional. They don't look like any ragtag, group.
Even the boots.
Yeah, exactly.
Reminds me of the RPF.
This is a very, very well organized group. But then it's also existing in a context of a lot of ungovernable spaces within the Congo. You have more than 120 militia groups in Congo and Eastern DRC. There are a lot. So it's not just M23 alone. But not being able to fix this problem, because it's like giving a license to one community against the other. Part of the challenge we've had with disarming, especially among cattle rustling communities in this country, is that when you disarm one, they refuse to disarm because they're like, but you need to disarm the Pokots, or you need to disarm the Turkana, you need to disarm so and so. Because why disarm me and then the other person is actually going to perpetrate crimes against me? And so while this can be testy and sensitive issues, we really need to confront them. Number two, it is true. You see, Rwanda cannot, of course, run away from what is happening in the Congo. You cannot have M23 looking that good. Okay, and that discipline. Kagame is probably one of the most disciplined soldiers, that we know.
Yes.
And there's no doubt that Rwanda is one of the most disciplined countries on the continent.
With a disciplined army.
Yeah, with a disciplined army, and Kigali apparently is very neat than most cities that we have and very organized. So he's a very disciplined person. But the question he is raising about that aspect, And we're accusing him, of course, you know, most of the West accused him, and does not mean that they're completely wrong in some of the involvement, of having caused these problems, but then we expect him to host the refugees is going to be a challenge, a big one, because then no one seems to be offering any help in doing that. And at the same time, there's something he's mentioned, that even when you set up that camp, you know, what happens is the world comes and picks the families they want, and then they leave the rest to you.
Yep.
You know, why are you doing that? So the whole question of refugees, what he's raising here as Africans, and especially as Kenya, as one of the largest hosts of refugee camps, we really need to be able to look at it and have the international community shoulder the greater responsibility, you know, because they're just not refugees in Rwanda. You have refugees inside Congo who are actually even a lot more, who are displaced, who are taking care of them. A lot of these people are being violated. You have other refugees within the region. Now you're having refugees in Ethiopia, you know, some of them who've crossed over to Sudan and other countries. How are we going about them? And the reason, I think the strange thing is what we do is only when a limelight is being shone on a certain refugee camp do we actually start talking about it. But there are so many refugee camps that are either underfunded or not funded at all. Children, women, people are dying of basic diseases, starvation. But we're not actually doing anything about it because we've not internationalized it sufficiently to ensure that less money that is going to war in Ukraine, and that at least a little more money actually also goes to the refugees on the continent. I think that's something that's going to be important.